Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis on this Sunday, January. January 28th, 2024. We are delighted that you're here this morning. First Unitarian Society is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Our programming is on-site, live, online, live, and on demand 24/7. My name is Reverend Kelly Clement. I serve as your assistant minister. And I am joined today by our senior minister, the Reverend Dr. David Breeden, our director of music, Mike Vasic, and Los Groove. We have Eli, Otto, Logan, and Axel. Los Groove, these students are all students at the St. Paul Conservatory of Performing Arts, and they are Mike's students. And I just want to say, for any of you who might happen to be wearing hearing aids, you may want to turn them down, because we're going to rock out. There's some shredding going on here earlier today, really fine. So glad to have you here. Welcome, everyone, to this place of love and justice. This is a place where we attempt to live up to humanity's highest ideals, highest hopes. Do we fail? Often, yes, we do. Do we try again? Yes, we do, always. Because we are people looking out for each other, sentient beings, and the planet. Welcome all to this place of love and justice, to this gathering where the sacred and the holy are created by our being together. Thank you for being with us today. get in there. Do you want to see him? There we go.
Will you say with me the second aspiration? We aspire to make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world.
Thank you. Hadassah, do you want to stay up here for the covenant? We'll sing the song, and you can just sit right here if you want to. Okay. So we're going to sing together. We don't have to sing rock and roll, but if you want to, you know you really could. We're going to sing We Give Thanks. It's number 1010 in the Teal Songbook. And of course, the lyrics will appear up here, and you are invited to stand as you are willing and able. All right. Mike, do you want to play this through once? Yeah, why don't you play it through once, and then we'll sing it. Okay. Precious day, for all you're here, and those far away, for this time we share of love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here. Please remain standing for our congregational covenant.
Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
First Unitarian Society is a congregational humanist community. We are here for each other, for our neighbors, and for our planet. When we gather on Sundays, we take a few moments to reflect on the human experience, the joys, the sorrows, and the milestones. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity and to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. Downstairs, there is usually a card basket where you can stop to send a note to folks who are unable to attend assembly. So if you have anyone that you'd like to write a note to, you just write that note and drop it in the basket there, and we will send it out. We'll mail it for you. There were no particular joys and sorrows that were noted this week, but there is always much on our hearts as we continue into this challenging year in a divided nation, in a world that is hurting and full of war, where it is difficult to go on with the daily business of living, to find joy in our lives sometimes, and be aware of all that is happening in the world, both on the other side of the world, in Palestine and Israel, in Ukraine, in many places in the world that are so burdened with war and oppression and injustice, and in our own neighborhoods and backyards, and perhaps even in our own homes. Part of the work of being in community is to bring all of that here, to know that all that we bring here is welcome, and to know that this place can hold it all. Let's take a few moments of silence to reflect on what it means to be in community, to hold each other's stories, and to reflect on those in our world who work to comfort the suffering and work for justice. Mike Vosich, you get extra points today. Are these students get extra points today? Yeah. Amazing. What a cool job you have. Yay. Yeah. Well, for a wisdom story today, I brought a prop. David brought some props for his talk, but I have brought this tiny kerosene lamp. Can you see this? It's a really small kerosene lamp. My mother, who was born in 1937, had the measles when she was about 8 years old. She lived out on the farm in northeast Texas, and they didn't have electricity in the house yet. And this tiny little kerosene lamp, her mother put by her bedside so that when she woke up in the night, she could see this little lamp burning. There was an old belief that if you had the measles and you looked into a bright light, it would be bad for you, it would be bad for your eyes. And so they had this small lamp burning. And so it's been passed down in our family. And I just think it's such a sweet little lamp. I'm going to set it right here. Mom got over the measles. It was pretty serious, the measles, back in the day. And there was not a vaccine for it until 1963. So those of us in the room who were born maybe in the early 60s and onward, if our parents wanted us to be vaccinated, have been vaccinated against the measles. I was born in 62 and I got that measles vaccine. And I would bet that most of us in this room who were able to be vaccinated against the measles got it. Because in this place, we believe in science, right? We believe that vaccines are important to us, and we believe that science helps move us forward. That science in 1962 didn't know everything, but it was built on, and it was built on, and it was built on. They weren't doing this kind of music at First Unitarian Society in 1962. Well, I don't know, maybe. Somewhere. No, but not in assembly in 1962, 63. But we come forward. We come forward. Technology and science are not in the service just of knowing more, but in the service of making our lives better. So I think this congregation right here, we know so much more and how to do so much more than we did, say, 4 years ago, when we didn't know how to, well, we did know something about streaming our services. We knew this much, and now we know this much. And you who are watching online, whether today or next week or next month, know this much about how to access our services. We didn't know how to go to Zoom meetings. Who knew from a Zoom meeting? You young ones didn't know how to go to Zoom school. Now everybody knows how to go to Zoom school. So much we don't even want to anymore. Right? We even have these nifty new microphones that are so groovy. We are progressive, not just because it's a good idea, but because when we know more, when we know better, we do better. Science and technology and ways of learning help us connect, help us be better community for each other, help us bring in different kinds of ideas, help us grow to the next level, help us be healthier. So my mom, born in 1937, is the one who taught me how to text. She was not about to let technology pass her by. She wanted to be on the front edge of things. And I expect she'll keep teaching me what's the next thing. We share ideas all the time. And that's what we do here, from the littlest ones to the most seasoned. Keep getting those vaccines and being healthy and coming to be here together.
All right. Thanks, Rev Kelly. Thanks, Rev Kelly.
You bet.
Now, those of us who grew up in the King James Version of the Bible, remember the bachelor and the maidens? The wise maidens had their wicks trimmed. And some of this still I would say it's a lost art. That's kind of what I want to talk about today. Lost art. First off, I want to talk about, he's saying do something. Something's wrong with my mind? Oh, no. Well, I won't sit down then. That's what I get for trying. Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right, well, let's take a look here. What I want to do is get us back in terms of thinking to maybe a pre-Christian way of thinking. And so I want to start off with a little quote here from a fellow by the name of Symmachus. And Symmachus was one of the last of the Roman pagans to be in any power in Rome at the time. You see that he lived in the 350s, basically, Symmachus. And he says this: to think highly of one's ancestors is good. To think highly of one's descendants, even better. Now, why is Symmachus missing a nose? Any ideas? Christians got him. That's right. All statues were the face that the Christians could get their hands on. And a broken nose he wasn't decapitated, at least. Many were, right? And that's why we have so many headless statues around. What I want to talk about today is what's wrong with America. And this is one of the things that's wrong with America, I do believe. And I've been reading a book recently that I would recommend for you. And that is one called American Schism. If you look, you probably can't see it, but it says how the two enlightenments hold the secrets to healing our nation. All right? And most of us don't realize that there were two enlightenments. And most of us don't realize that those two enlightenments led to very different ideas. One of the enlightenments led to what we call Republicans here in the U.S., that is, those who believe that government should have very minimal effect, well, how much we should talk about. And the other enlightenment led to the Democratic Party, basically, that is, let the people decide that which they want. And as you know, the United States is kind of always back and forth about that. We have this electoral college thing. Well, that's one Enlightenment invention, to make sure that people don't take over, right? So a representative government. Okay, so where does this come from? Well, let me talk a little about it. In the Europe that all people from Europe came from, if you happen to have family back there, we had in Europe 3 estates. They were the church, the aristocracy, and the poor. Now, where are the women? That's what they're asking. Where were you? No, you don't. No power for you. Thank you very much. So you have the aristocracy, you have the lower aristocracy, you have the church, and then you have everybody else. Now, for me, I know very well that my folks, my forebears, were in the 3rd estate. That is dirt poor serfs and peasants, right? Maybe you come from somewhere else, but this is the way Europeans lived, and it's the way the idea of society came to the United States. Now, the next slide will show you what people began to think about that. How do you feel about that? Well, you got your king, you got your aristocracy, you got your Roman Catholic Church, all riding this fellow with his tongue hanging out at the bottom of the page there, as you see. Now, we don't see pictures like this from the American Revolution. This is the French Revolution. Why?
because the American Revolution was not an economic revolution. It was only getting rid of the colonial overseers. But the rich people stayed rich, the poor people stayed poor. A matter of fact, taxes went up after the war because they had to pay for it. Let's look at the next slide then. This also comes from the French Revolutionary period. And this is the three estates. You got the aristocracy, you got the church, and you got the poor picking up firearms to free themselves. In the background, you see the Bastille being beaten down by the masses. Now, again, you don't see this in the United States, but it does inform the way we live still. Because when this picture was created, we were creating over here the U.S. Constitution. The Second Amendment to the American Constitution says we have the right to keep and bear arms. That's why it means a lot to many of us, right? Because how do we resist? Because we're shut out of the economic system. We're shut out of the political system. What are you going to do? That's about it. That's about it. Now, this idea, next time you hear some redneck like me going on about the right to keep and bear arms, remember this picture, please, because it means a lot to southern rednecks like me. Next one, because our right to keep and bear arms. This is my father. It's probably 36, 37, along in there, 1936, 1937. My grandparents on my father's side were sharecroppers in deep southern Illinois down by the Ohio River. That's where I'm from. The Ozarks, we call them. The guy on the right is my dad. The other guy is my uncle. Both of them long dead. But here they are before the Second World War. Now, I don't know how many of you, now that I can't, hang on. All right, since I can't walk around. Some of you know, who've been in my office, that I keep this in my office. Why would I do that? What is it? Horse collar, that's right. My grandfather, grandparents, sharecroppers didn't own too much. As a matter of fact, they owned a wagon usually, a couple of mules, a couple of horses, and that was about it. So the harness, this is about 50% of my grandfather's inheritance, because he died real poor as he was born. Now, how many of you know how to use one of these? Put one of these on a horse. Anybody? All right, good farmers, yes, yes. Well, I grew up in the tractor era, but we still used horses to some extent. So I do know how to do this. But what I want to do is think about the skill level that it takes, if you put the picture back up there, of what the skill level it takes to hook up that stuff. All right? Who is in sixth grade? Anybody? Oh, they ran down to Owl. Oh, okay. Well, my dad got drafted into the Second World War out of the sixth grade. He was 20, but that's the way sharecroppers lived. Okay, that's the way sharecroppers lived. So my father lived a life in which he theoretically had a sixth grade education. He could read and write a little bit. He could do some basic math, but that was really about it. But by golly, he knew how to hook up a horse's collar. Now, I want you to look at this picture real quick, because I want to point something out. I didn't know about this picture until my father was long dead, so I couldn't ask anybody. But this was taken by my aunt. We say aunt in the South, aunt up here, right? By my aunt, who had just bought one of these. This is a Brownie camera. Oh, yeah, thanks. This is a Brownie camera, the first camera that people could carry around, okay? So she bought that, and she took off taking pictures of the family, and that's why we have pictures of the family. And I, for one, am really glad someone besides me figured out how to put this in a phone, because, yeah, I would never have figured that out. Now, I know that this picture is staged. How do I know that? Number one, you don't ride in a wagon when you're shucking corn. And they're shucking corn because they have a bang board on the side to throw the corn against. All right? Anybody see what else? Well, yeah. If the horses were moving, my aunt would be in sorry shape. Yes. If you look at that, and yep. It's that strap right there. Now that strap is the hardest thing to put on when you're putting harness on a horse. And the first thing you do when you rest your horses is loosen it, because the collars are hard on the horse. So you loosen that. So if you look, that strap there is untied. And so I can tell that they're probably doing lunch or something of that nature. But that's what my father knew how to do from his education. Now, the next slide, I found this after my father's death in his papers. This is part of his discharge from the Army. So if you look at the top right, farmer general, that means he wasn't a wheat farmer or a dairy farmer. He's a general farmer, sharecropper in other words, right? Does anyone have this designation? It's weird because why are you talking about what he knows how to do? 306.10, does anyone know? Mixed urban combat. So why that's a skill, I have no idea. House-to-house fighting, in other words. And so nowadays, if you came home with that, the cops would be knocking on your door trying to recruit you. But in 1946, they weren't looking for house-to-house fighters. That wasn't a skill that my father was going to be able to use. So what the military did is they took these poor kids and they tried to figure out something for them to do, to send them back home. You had 3 million 20-somethings sitting around in Europe waiting to come home and get jobs. That was a little scary for the government. That's why they left them over there for a year. Projectionist motion picture. My father was trained by the U.S. military as a projectionist motion picture. Now, in 1946, every town in America had a cinema, right? In 1955, everyone had a TV, right? So how long was that skill going to last? Not very long. So he knows how to farm with horses. After World War II, there were very few horses around anymore for farming. He knows how to kill people, and the cops didn't want that in those days. And he knows how to run a motion picture projector. That's all the training my father ever had. When he came back, that's what he had. That's one kind of education. And it's not a good one. Let's go to the next slide. In 1908, John Dewey, who's, as you know, a humanist hero, was reading and writing about Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he said this: if man is sick, is mean-spirited and odious, it is because there is so much of his nature which is unlawfully withholden from him. That's Emerson. What makes people as they are is we keep stuff away from them. We don't share. Okay? Then Dewey says this: against creed and system, convention and institution, Emerson stands for restoring to the common man that which in the name of religion, of philosophy, of art, and of morality has been embezzled from the common store and appropriated to sectarian and class use. Now, Dewey was not a raving communist. He was just looking at the American social situation. We are withholding so much from the poor. And the key, he says, is education. And that's why we do E-square these days the way we're doing it. We are doing constructivist education that's not teaching them to use around a camera, because there's not a lot of point unless you just kind of want to. We're teaching them how to think. The next slide is the central book that Dewey talks about this. The conception that growth and progress are just approximations to a final unchanging goal is the last infirmity of the mind in its transition from a static to a dynamic understanding of life. Why did the Christians knock Symmachus' nose off? Because he saw the world as circular. Seasons. It just went on and on. The Christians saw a linear future. God was going to come back. That's two very different ways of thinking. Okay? Very different ways of thinking. The next slide is I want to look at here is one more thing. I just want to underline this transition from a static to a dynamic understanding of life. Knowing that rather than knowing how. All right? That's what was withheld from the American poor. Still is. And it's what we can give our youth because we are privileged people. Knowing that rather than knowing how. A static notion of the universe, being able to think in a creative and progressive way. So, Paulo Freire, some of you know, he's one of the centers for the teaching of this new way of thinking that Dewey was working on, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, one of my favorite books to work with. The next slide has one of his great quotes on it. It says, education either functions as an instrument that is used to facilitate the integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity, right, to it, or it becomes the practice of freedom, right, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. That's the difference. That's the difference. Pedagogy for the oppressed. Dewey said, education, therefore, is a process of living and not a preparation for future living. Education, therefore, is a process of living today, right now, right? Not a preparation for future living. My father was prepared to run motion pictures machines for the rest of his life. Not a very good way to enter the workforce, was it? He knew technique, but he didn't know how to think. That he wasn't given that. The next slide talks about one of our favorites, I'm sure, Bell Hooks. Her books are all brilliant, you know, and she teaches us how to do this kind of thinking. If you'll go to the next slide, I celebrate teaching that enables transgressions, a movement against and beyond boundaries. It is that movement which makes education the practice of freedom. Yeah? That's what we are attempting to do here. The next slide. Education is not an affair of telling and being told, but an active and constructive process. People talk to each other and learn things from each other by doing them. And the next slide, the last quote from him, give the pupils something to do, not something to learn. And the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking. Right? Make sure it demands thinking. Learning naturally results. So Franklin, if I invited you to figure out how to put this camera into this one, I think you could read up on it and kind of figure it out, right? Because, you know, even though it's just a black box, and that you put film in there, right? So you can figure that out. Probably, you know, this doesn't need to be remanufactured. But the way the optics work, you could figure out how to do that. That is giving the pupils something to think about and then able to do it. And that's what we're doing with these square. And the last slide I want to think about here is a book that just came out from MIT Press, Out of the Cave, A Natural Philosophy of Mind and Knowing. In that, they say this, and I think it's very, very important. All of the affective and cognitive operations we perform, From simple perception to our most impressive intellectual and artistic achievements, are affairs of the embodied mind. Now, Dewey was saying that in 1903. We're not brains in a vat, right? We're not brains free-floating. We all have bodies, and actually, in fact, we are embodied at all times. What we think and how we think depends on our brains and bodies as they operate in our physical, social, and cultural environments. My father never had a chance, really, right? Many of you have parents or grandparents who lived in that simple way. One-room schoolhouses are still, it's so nostalgic. Well, when they saw hillbillies walking in, they flunked them, right? My dad didn't learn anything, essentially. That is the key to education, is how to think and the ability of how to think. And that's what we do here with our education, lifelong education. And that's why I think it's important, because I've seen the suffering of people who didn't get it. Thank you.
So let's sing a little more. Love Will Guide Us. It's number 131 in the Gray Song book, and of course the lyrics will come up here. And stand as you are willing and able, please. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot speak like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Jenna Hutchinson, and I am chair of the FUS Stewardship Committee. This year, our committee has come up with some new ideas regarding our pledge campaign, and one of these was to ask someone to be the face of our campaign, or the spokesperson on a weekly basis. And we were delighted that when we asked Phil Duran, immediately agreed to be this year's spokesperson. Phil has been a member of FUS for more than 22 years. He's served in the past on the Board of Trustees and been board chair. He's been very involved in seasonal celebrations team, and in this role has spoken from this pulpit many times. And I recall seeing him many times in the kitchen on our cinnamon roll Sundays. So our committee is very grateful to Phil for all he's contributed to FUS, and thank him for taking on this role.
Thanks, Jenna. Jenna recruited me for this last fall at Retreat to the Woods, and there's one aspect of the conversation that I remember, but I don't think Jenna touched on, which was, as I recall, she let it slip that I was the committee's fourth choice. which makes me really worried what the other three know. But she's certainly right that when I was invited, I happily agreed to do it. And it's, for one reason, it's because I love this place, and I know that you do too. And one of the ways that many of us show our love for First Unitarian Society is through our regular pledge. And I know from experience that the pledges that we bring in here are a substantial part of the budget. And in the coming weeks, our Board of Trustees and our finance team will begin putting the budget together for the 24-25 year. And as part of that process, it's so important for them to have a sense of what they can count on from us as far as our pledges are concerned, because we know we can't have this beautiful building, we can't have this wonderful staff, we can't have the vibrant programs and events without the resources that we share. And so you'll be hearing from the stewardship team, including me this time, through the end of February, the month of love, with an invitation to show your love to FUS by renewing your pledge and completing your pledge form and getting this turned back in. Now, I know you are eager, excited to get this process begun. I understand that. Please no stampeding, but after the assembly, if you're in the building and have given before, there is a table in the lower assembly hall, bright pink, just like the form, can't miss it. There is a personalized pledge packet waiting for you. It's got a cover letter, your form, and some information about the FUS budget, where money comes from, where money goes, so that you know it's being handled responsibly. You can fill in the form and turn it in right there. It'll take you a minute. You can take it home. If you are participating online, you could do this all electronically as well. Keep your eyes on the Friday e-news and you'll get the details on how to do that. If the form is downstairs and not picked up today, they'll be mailed to you this week, because don't forget, stewardship knows where you live. So don't mess with them. Right? Our goal is to get all of them in by February 29th. And so I hope that you'll take a minute, think about what this place means to you, think about how much you are able to share with it this coming year, and again, just fill out the form. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it really helps. So please do. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil, Jenna, and the whole stewardship team for all that you do for this place to help us know about our stability and vibrancy. That's one of the ways that we know about our vibrancy. So just a few announcements today. Because you're going downstairs to pick up your pledge packet, please join us for our mini meal down in the lower assembly hall. That's directly below this room. I see that we have a number of visitors here. You're on level 3 now, and that's on level 2, one floor down. Today we have smoked ham and beans over corn polenta. We have mock stroganoff with brown basmati rice and applesauce spice cake. That sounds good. And at noon today, part 3 of our Protecting Minnesota Waters series. Today we have Paula Maccabee, you see her there, to learn about Water Legacy's litigation to prevent the Polymet mine pollution in the Lake Superior watershed and advocacy to protect water quality and health throughout Minnesota. The series is free and open to the public. We've had fantastic conversations the past 2 Sundays, and this is available also online. So if you were joining us online, you just come in through the same link, firstunitarian.org/live. And it also will live on our YouTube channel and on our website, but we would love to see you in here at noon today, right here. David mentioned the best way to keep up with what's going on at FUS, both with E², which stands for Ethical Explorers. That's our religious education program. E² is Ethical Explorers. If you want to know more about that, if you want to know more about stewardship or any of the programs that are going on here, do so by checking in with our Friday update. You can find out more about that at the welcome table out front or downstairs. Check in with the office if you want to, online at our website, all the ways to find out what's going on. Okay. And then we extinguish our chalice. Shall we do that? I think. Got the words?
Please say this with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
Thank you, Hadassah and Franklin. And Los Groove, one more time.
While these guys are setting up, I just wanted to express my thanks to them for being here today. Axel Whitty is 10th grade at SPCPA. Logan Flores, did you write all these songs or was it together? So this was all original music by Logan and these students. Logan Flores here is a senior, and Otto Dregny is a senior, and Eli Brunel here is a 11th grader, junior. So this is an extension of my work I do at the school, and to bring them in here is really, really nice. There's a lot of things that you can teach, but there's a lot of things that you can't teach. You can just create opportunities for people, and then they do amazing things. So this is education, constructivist education in action. Here you are doing a gig. It's very, very cool, and thank you. So what is the last one here today? Mi Morena. Okay, thank you.